folks, Ariel over here at Fineth. Well, you saw in the last video how things are starting to melt out. There's still big snow piles in places, but some of them are turning bare, enough that I can actually start doing some gardening things. Ariel over here at Fineth. This is the one little urban flower bed that is close to our mailbox, actually. And what I'm doing today, since it's actually warm and sunny and feeling like spring, and there's still a giant snow pile right over there where the camera can't see it, but this spot's melted out because we kept the lane cleared and the sun could hit it. And anyway, this is looking like spring here, and it's beautiful feeling today. The forecast says it's going to snow tomorrow, so we'll see, but right now it feels like spring. And I like to, when everything goes to sleep for the winter, just leave all the plants exactly as they are so they have as much time as possible, especially where our climate's so cold here, to pull all the nutrients that were in the plant back down into the root, because almost all this stuff is perennial. And then when I see the snow just melted off here like a day ago, when I see the new green growth like this starting to come out, then in the spring, then I like to cut off the dead tops so they're out of the way of the new growth coming out. This little ambitious pansy is already blooming. It's got several flowers open. And there's actually another ambitious pansy here with one flower open, a bunch more buds coming. And the first thing I cut off here, this was a petunia. They're not perennial here. And instead of pulling them out, I still left it there, even though it's not going to come back. But I don't want to pull it out because I don't want to disturb all the roots it's put down, into the soil, creating that beautiful soil structure. I want to let them decompose in the ground. So that was all one plant last year, and I just cut its top off and left its roots in. But almost everything else in here is perennial, which means it comes back year after year. These are balloon flowers. This is all stuff I got planted last year, dug up from my old garden in the old clearing. This stuff here is lamb's ear, and it kind of never fully seems to die the whole way back. It's always got some green in it, but there's a lot of dead on top too, so it grows out prolifically. I try to cut back, or sometimes I don't even have to cut, but I can just kind of do this. Its leaves are very soft. They feel nice to work with. And these are its flower blossom stalks from when it bloomed. Anyway, I'm just going to pull off the dead stuff because I want the new growth to have room to grow. And this bed is mostly herbs with a few flowers. Most of the herbs flower, of course, but a few things that are just flowers that are thrown in. This was, sometimes you got to figure out where the base is so you can clip it. This is, now that I'm talking to the camera, I'll blank on the name. Sweet alyssum. That is a flower that is very, very good, from my understanding, at attracting or distracting bugs you don't want to have eat your other things. So I try to plant a lot of it. It grows easily from seed. That's actually an annual. This plant won't come back, but it tends to reseed itself prolifically, so I'm pretty sure I will have some that come back, even though it's not actually that plant. It tends to become self-seeding here, and it's called sweet alyssum. It has a beautiful smell. So I'm just going to clean up this bed like this. Lamb's ear is an herb. I've got thyme, I've got chives, I've got several kinds of hyssop, several mints, and then some just flowers like irises. What else do I have in here? Sweet curry, probably other things I'm not thinking of, and there's several down through here. Oh, and strawberries, like right here. I don't know if the camera can see those green leaves. That's a strawberry plant. They make an excellent ground cover, and I tucked a bunch of them in here, and they're taking off. And so this is my general spring cleanup, and if possible, like I said, I like to leave all this stuff till spring, because for one, I'm always getting, kind of cabin fever by the time it's actually spring. If you're wondering about these holes you can see, we did have a bunch of cows that walked down the road when they weren't actually supposed to be there, I don't believe, last year, and one of them walked through here and punched some pretty big holes into the ground. So like he knocked this little pansy mostly out. I'm gonna see if I can replant it. It may or may not survive, but it was mostly stomped out of the ground. And the pansies will tend to reseed themselves for me as well. But this is the time of year it's great to clean everything up, and all the nutrients and all the mulch and all the protection was left there all winter long for beneficial insects to hide in, and like I said, for the plants to pull as much nutrition as possible down into their roots to come up as healthy and vigorous as they can. This year there's another little strawberry. And if people are wondering, this it's a Corona. I'll try to link to this. This is my favorite clippers. I've worked for a bunch of people doing a lot of different gardening stuff, and it may not be your favorite. Ones fit different people's hands differently, but I've had this since I was 16, I think. So over the course of decades, I've still been using it. It was sharpened once. Clay sharpened it for me, but it works very well. I'm very happy with it. I like tools that stay useful for a long time. So I do recommend that if you're looking for clippers. I use it for all kinds of things all year long. And then this whole wheelbarrow stuff will go in the compost, and over the course of the next year it will just sit there. I've done videos on how I do my composting. I don't turn it or anything. I do the lazy man's way of composting, and by the end of a year it'll be beautiful, beautiful rich compost that I can add back to the garden bed, these beds, around a tree I want to plant, anything like that. So it's going right in with all the other stuff in the compost. And you could certainly do this in the fall or autumn. In my climate, it just seems to work best for me personally to do it in the spring. I do think it helps the plants a little bit to have as much time as possible, since our growing season is so short, for their nutrition without getting their heads chopped off. So that's what I do, and I'm gonna just keep working on this. If it's already very springy in your area, like I said, forecast says snow tomorrow again, but it's so beautiful this afternoon, it seemed like a good time to do this. But if you've got any flower beds or anything in your area, every single rental and everything I've ever lived in, I've left flower beds that I have planted, and this is a good time to get out there and see what you've got. A little plane flying overhead. One thing I would caution you is, oh, and I've even got some daffodils coming up there that I can see now that I cleared the other brush off of them. If you're not sure if something's annual or perennial, and it doesn't look like it's coming up yet, definitely only cut off dead stuff, because it may well sprout back out of the roots later. This is garlic chives right under here. They do really well in this climate. And I'm also weeding this for the first time in the spring as I do this. There's mostly just a couple sprigs of grass blades sticking up. Garlic chives do really well here. They're very easy to propagate. I could chop this chunk in half and propagate it, but I've got clumps of them everywhere, and I've given them away to friends, and they were all started from one single plant I bought. This is big bushy one is silver artemisia. It's kind of loud, also known as sweet wormwood. It's got a very pleasant scent. It makes a beautiful dried flower as well, and it can be used medicinally for a couple things. And it grows a very pretty flower. The pollinators got all kinds of reasons I like to keep it around, but it is looking, the last year's growth is looking all leggy and dead. And this is a little, well, that was a little hyssop. I don't see anything coming from the roots yet, but I've had them for many years. They tend to be very hardy, so I'm just clipping the tops off and assuming the roots will be growing out here shortly. There I've got thyme coming. Oh, and some more daffodils. And anyway, this is always exciting to do because, like I said, I get, I love winter, as you probably know if you've watched videos here for any length of time. But after a long winter, I always get itching to have growing things again because I also love growing things. So this is my project for the day, and if you also live in a cold area, this is maybe a list of some flowers and herbs that tend to do well and be perennial for you. Many of these also grow in warmer areas, of course, but these are the things that I know have survived year after year for me. So let me pause there for just a minute, and in case anyone is in a similar climate to me and is wondering, after my many years of gardening here in Wyoming, these are kind of a list of flowers that I have found do well here, and they either are actually perennial or they self-reseed pretty well. Pansies do phenomenal here. They're gorgeous. They generally bloom all summer long instead of dying in the heat because we don't generally get much heat, and they usually reseed themselves, though sometimes the same plant will live through the year. Daffodils of all varieties that I've ever planted do really well here. They of course come up much later than they do in many other places for other people, but they seem to thrive year after year with no problem at all. Bluebells, that's what I've always called them, but they're actually called grape hyacinth, I believe. They do well, very similar to daffodils. Strawberries, of course, are edible, but they also make a beautiful ornamental plant or ground cover, and many varieties do just fine here. Lettuce is also something that can be ornamental, even if you don't eat it. The leaves are beautiful. Sage is great for cooking and comes in lots of lovely colors. Strawberry spinach makes a beautiful edible berry on top, as well as the leaves being edible, and it reseeds itself. Feverfew is a perennial herb as well as beautiful dried flower. Hollyhocks of all colors do well, and the pollinators of various kinds seem to love them. Sweet alyssum smells beautiful and is also attractive to many wonderful bugs. It also self-reseeds. Daylilies, every part of the plant is edible and they thrive year after year. Catmint or Nepeta is in the mint family. All of those do well here. Peppermint, meadow mint, and so on. I love mints. Columbines are spectacular here and also attractive to many, many different pollinators. Globe thistle do not spread like most thistles, and they make a lovely dried flower. Foxgloves also come back year after year and attract pollinators. Irises are just gorgeous. They're one of my favorite flowers. I don't even know that they do anything particularly useful. Sunflowers do well. They're an annual, but they can self-reseed, and bees and such tend to love them. Plus, they produce wonderful things like sunflower seeds for you or your chickens. Garlic chives make a beautiful flower as well as delicious food. Blanket flowers come in quite a few golds and oranges and such, and they do very well here in our climate. And hyssop is also in the mint family. This is one of my very favorites. I have several varieties of hyssop, and as you can see from these photos, it is absolutely loved by all of the pollinator things, including hummingbirds, and it smells beautiful, and I also use it in making teas and that kind of thing. Tansy grows well here. It makes a gorgeous cut flower, a dried flower and cut flower as well. Some of these things may be invasive in your area. You might want to check that. They're not here. Bee balm is another mint family plant. It comes in various colors. It attracts things like hummingbird moths and hummingbirds and all kinds of pollinators, and it also makes a lovely tea. I have a good bit of that because it's one of my favorite things. Chamomile attracts bugs and makes a great tea. And salvia is another beautiful flower that comes back year after year and the pollinators love. Hopefully, if you're also in a very cold area with short summers, that gives you some ideas. Again, some of these things may be invasive in some warmer areas or not do well there. I don't know. I've never lived in those areas. These are things that all do well for me. At our high elevation, about 6,300 feet above sea level, climate here with about 8 months of winter and frost and freezes all summer long. And that's after 15 years of gardening in various spots and various homes here in Wyoming. So hopefully that's helpful info for some of you. Maybe that'll give you some ideas. That's one of the things I tend to struggle with if I need new ideas. There's so few other people who live in areas as cold as me that it's hard to get ideas from others because there's not that many people gardening in spots like this. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. We live in basically a zone 3 growing zone area, but with about 8.5, 9 months of winter and cool short summers where the summer nights as well can freeze and occasionally snow. So a lot of growing things here are a challenge. This variety of hyssop gets so tall It also makes tons of seeds. I can still knock seeds out of these seed heads, and it reseeds itself beautifully, which I love, even though it's also perennial. That's in the mint family. I use it for making lots of teas, and the pollinators love this. I get so many butterflies and hummingbirds on this stuff. That's going to make great compost. It got so tall it tended to blow over last summer, so I had that stuck in there just to keep it from flopping over. It also makes a gorgeous cut flower. So in addition to the fact that I, of course, like beautiful flowers, the things here that are not useful herbs for eating or cooking or medicinally are just beautiful flowers, which I suspect is good for our souls, but they're also tend to attract pollinators and beneficial predatory insects that eat the bugs I don't want and all of that, which helps all the other food I'm trying to grow. So they do multiple things and have many uses and many reasons to grow things, even if the reason is not that I'm going to eat that particular item. And if you're wondering what this bed is made out of, these are those very rotten old railroad ties, where if you've been following life around here for a while, that's what the little temporary bridge onto the property was made out of when we first purchased it, before Clay built us a lovely bridge that was safe to drive across. And they were so rotten they didn't really work for anything else. And this is also a reason why I don't really grow a lot of food in here, because there's probably a bunch of toxic creosote and stuff leaching out of them. So this bed is mostly ornamental and for attracting pollinators and beneficial bugs. But I don't like to throw anything away if it can be used, and they still seem solid enough to create a flower bed like this. And so they did. And it's been lovely. And then it was just filled with topsoil that we scraped up off the property here in different places, like from where the shop was being built and things like that. I have got, that's strawberry spinach. That seeded itself. It was probably in the soil, the seeds for it last year, beside these irises, and it sprouted even though I didn't plant it there. And this is a salvia. Some of these things you don't even need a clippers for. You can kind of just break off what's dead, and some are tough enough stems you want to actually give them a clip. But that's what these beds are made out of, or this bed is made out of. Just reusing stuff so that nothing goes to waste. Remember that compost bin that I showed you guys building last fall with some massive jumbo zip ties and pallets? That's where this stuff is going. It's more than halfway full with different things through the winter, and it keeps, shrinking over time. But again, that's where this is all going, and it's breaking down in there to make excellent fertilizer to put back in the garden beds and so on, and the flower beds and all of that. And then, since I didn't get all this footage put together till the next morning anyway, you can see the forecast turned out to be correct. over here at Fineth. Thank you so much for watching these videos and spending some of your very valuable time choosing to do that. We hope you found something that was useful, educational, helpful, maybe save someone else some time and trouble, or just something just plain beautiful. If you don't want to miss any videos, subscribe and hit the bell. And thanks for coming along on our journey as we build a new little homestead with our tiny house and everything to come.